Hei, tervetuloa tähän RTV:n Kohtaamisia sarjaan. Tällä kertaa meillä on mahdollisuus olla mukana keskustelussa ja kuunnella henkilöä, joka ei tule ihan läheltä, vaan tuolta suuren meren takaa, eli Amerikan mantereelta. Hän on Charles Lawrence, joka on mustajalka intiaani niin sanotusti, tai alkuperäisväestön edustaja, mutta sen lisäksi hän on, hänen kokemusmaailmaansa kuuluu lukuisten heimojen kanssa työskentely ja erityisesti traumatyöskentely. Sen lisäksi hän on sanansaattaja hopi intiaanien vanhassa viisaudessa ja ennusteissa. Tervetuloa kanssani tutustumaan hänen maailmaansa. Charles Lawrence, welcome. It is really pleasant and great honor to have you here. May we start, as you earlier suggested, that we could start perhaps with the association to Joseph Campbell's ideas of a journey of the hero. And maybe you could delight us on some of the basic ideas of this journey and how it relates to perhaps our understanding of the old myths of prehistoric or our indigenous people.
How many months do we have for this program? It's very complex.
Yeah.
Very complex. However, when you initiated that statement, one of Joe's responses, which has always tweaked my imagination, the world is a mess. It has always been a mess. It will always be a mess. Follow your bliss. And it's for the individual to find out really what intrigues them the most, what awakens their own specific genius, what awakens and clarifies their own imagination out of the cultural domestication, out of what I call spiritual cannibalism, of our imaginations that get eaten by fear, taught by religions and what have you, afraid of life, etc.
Is that the spiritual cannibalism?
Yeah. And then awakening the individual to their, why am I here? What is my purpose for being here? And that's an essential question that our cultures do not encourage the young people to ask. The old people haven't had that asked to them either, so they're already dead. They're walking dead people. Whereas you go to indigenous cultures, and I had grandmother Carolyn and a few other elders point me in the direction, say down at Zuni, and that's in New Mexico, where when an infant is born, after the 5 days of staying in the darkness, the midwife or the medicine man takes his baby out into the light of a dawn, a new day, and introduces the baby to the world.
What is the idea of keeping the child in darkness?
It allows the child to adjust to no longer being in the womb, surrounded by that way. And in that darkness, that time, with the transition from the fluidic world into the world of with the atrophy, not the atrophied, there's a word for it to come, but being where the air is dry, not where it's wet. Because while we're in the womb, we're breathing as fish. We're breathing in that embryonic state. Out here, our animal begins to breathe, find its way. But they take about those 5 days to get that adjustment time.
Yes.
And then they get taken out, like out of the darkness into the light. Metaphoric as very much a very practical way. And in front of because their responsibility is to allow that infant to demonstrate their reason for being in the world. And within 6 months, they know why that child is there. Not necessarily today, this is the way it used to be. Because we have generations now that have been forced education by the white man's way. So many of those old ways were lost. And yet they exist. Grandmother Carolyn, I was sent down by Clyde Hall, a Shoshone elder also, to explore the people who had been seen and allowed out of the womb. And there was a natural propensity. I think the Greeks call it tropism. That a little baby will reach for something, and the elders are watching, and they know they never say no. See, we have been terrified and terrorized by no. And rather than saying yes, like Rumi's beautiful poem, "Say yes swiftly." Yeah. And so the baby doesn't have to rebel. The individual who's raised in love and saying yes, and they're part of the tribe, they're part of the clan, the family. Because the elders knew a long time ago that that little helpless being, when allowed to feel love, when allowed to feel inclusiveness, someday down the road, the table's going to turn. And those two that brought you into the world, they're going to be old and helpless. Pardon?
You said that time that is needed for child to develop was how long until they saw that?
5 days.
But it was a longer period of time that the folks could see that
within 6 months.
What his destiny.
6 months.
6 months. Isn't that pretty soon?
Not in their world.
No.
I was sent to meet the man who's one of the foremost Navajo authorities today on the Navajo weavings and all. His grandmother knew within a month of his birth that he had come to replace her. And so he was not allowed to go out and play with the kids. He stayed by grandma because she had to teach him all the weaving songs. She had to teach him which clan could marry in which clan, because there's a lot of taboos. You don't mix clans. And I met Wesley when he's in the University of Washington, becoming the doctor in that world. The minute his grandmother died, he walked away from everything and went home to take care of the family. He went out of love, not out of any kind of obligation. And there's a huge difference when something is done out of love, not an obligation.
You have visited many indigenous people, tribes around the world.
Yes.
But you have also been quite a number of times in Finland and visited our original belief systems, and which are already dead in practice. So do you see that, for instance, in Finland or in Finnish people, that they have inkling of what you're talking about?
The yearning will always remain. And I want to quote an elder, Vince Stogan, of the Northwest Coast Salish people. I used to lament, Teemu, what is lost? How come that part of the tradition has been lost? And he said, don't worry. Someday, someone's going to be born who's carrying that piece, and it will come back to life. And I think many people here in Finland and around the world, but the Finnish genius, that which helped form the Finnish psyche thousands of years ago. I just came from the museum and from the prehistory exhibit today. That genius is waiting to come back. And it may be showing up in a new way today, but it's still the genius that wants the weaving, the fabric to come back together. And that which most brings aliveness and connection with the earth and all of the elements in that place. And there's a special way. Of course, Finland is what? It's a mass that was Karelia at one time, it was some of this at one time, and And yet, there's a vibration, a vortex. Every place has a vortex. Like the Lakota would say to you, that place is out there in the plains, or the Hopi would say, it's here at Hopi land, or this one said it's over here. But that's the place of origin that means most to the vibration of the people of that area. And the earth itself, we know now the Schumann wave. And those, it's a wave that brings coherence comes from that. And the more I listen to it and feel it in myself, which I've watched over these years, how many more people are called to that way. They're yearning. And today, with this epidemic of loneliness in the world, many people are yearning for a place of belonging. And of course, the Hopi talked about keeping the doors open for those who are looking, those who want to know. The same things happened here over these years. We're going into year 22 of the Four Winds. And that was begun on those principles, that Hopi symbol. And it's evolving, adapting. Like the Dalai Lama said, when we discover things today that are different than we thought yesterday, we change our mind. And the Four Winds has got to be a living, vital organism that's vital for the world the way it is today, not the way it used to be. We can't go back. But what's feeding and tapping into, I was with this technician from the Biocybernaut Institute the last few days. They discovered now that as more people are listening to television and what have you, it's altering the brain waves radically. A lot of folks on the internet, their brain waves are being altered radically. And for many, it's leading to depression. It's leading to a sense of this loneliness because the higher frequencies are not being accessed. The alpha frequencies one reaches through meditation. Those other higher frequencies that open as one's consciousness expands. And so it's the dedication of Four Winds has been and evolved as Grandpa here keeps saying we must open our arms more, we must open our hearts more, so that the lonely feel safe. Those who are yearning feel safe. And they're embraced as they are.
No, so you as a Charles, you have not always been spiritual. You have a development as well as where did you come from, and how did you find this world over your destiny, your mission that you are on right now? I mean, what happened before?
I was initiated by brutal people, by a horrific religion called Catholicism. Everything that tried to take my life force away from me, I was taught fear. I was taught I'm guilty. I was taught somebody died for me. I was taught bullshit. Yeah, some part of me almost died in that process. And magically one day or something happened, destiny you can call it. And what's his name? Huxley talked about the doors of perception opening. And I don't know, was it Jung or someone, when a crack of light comes in, oh my God, And then those doors of perception don't want to close. And for me, I had a destiny. I was sent to like the Salish people, or I was sent to Hopi. I didn't go looking for anything. I was told, you go down there, there's a lady you're supposed to meet. And that was Grandmother Carolyn. And my destiny with the Hopi, with the Hopi prophecy and the UN. All these other things, my consciousness knew nothing about. But I found a hungry little kid inside of me. A little kid who felt connected with the sunrise. A little kid who loved the creepy crawlies. A little kid who wanted to come to life and know freedom to be. And as Joe Campbell says, when one is pointed in the correct direction for them, since there is no right or wrong, that's just a man-made concept. But there is that which is correct or not. Don Juan talked about it in his own way. Is this a pathway of heart or not? If this is really causing the heart to know greater joy, greater love, greater compassion, greater, open, wider, that might be a real path. If it's a path of sorrow or loneliness or what have you, that's not the pathway I want to go. But I was fed. There was a time that came, happiness doesn't interest me. Happiness is boring. Because happiness is dependent upon something else. Joy. Causeless joy is a choice one can make. And the day came when I went through a lucid, intense initiation where I was given this totem, this ancient archetypal totem. I didn't understand it. I found out 4 days later, the name of that sword I was given is joyeuse in the French. I was given this vessel, this ancient vessel called joy. And that required almost a year of cleansing, initiation in myself to be worthy to be this vessel of joy, to hold my arms wide and celebrate, to hold my arms wider to embrace, to hold myself so that I'm no longer at the affect, as we call that engaged indifference. You become indifferent to the dramas people are living. You start laughing where somebody else cries. Like you mentioned, the Tibetan, crazy wisdom. You do the opposite of what's expected. Because you're in a place of balance. You're in a place of aliveness. So I'm not spiritual. That's the mistake. I'm spirited. Big difference. Why did the Wazias choose this guy with those lightning bolts they threw at me? Because they had to wake me up.
Where were you when lightning bolt hit you?
I was in the middle of ceremony in Minnesota. Summer solstice, Sundance ceremony. I did it twice within 3 days. And I had to then be taken to the mountains on a vision quest to find out how come that color lightning hit me. And the elders knew. I didn't know. I wasn't conscious enough.
What did they know?
That I was given death medicine.
Death medicine?
Death medicine, yeah. And I had to go...
That must be quite serious medicine.
It was scary. There are no textbooks about death medicine. And that's the way the native people, too, in the long run, there's no textbooks. You've got to live the practice. You've got to be able to, and wisdom is only gained by experience. And so I had to go on a vision quest, and Black Elk and his wife were there. And when I came back from the mountain, being alone, naked up in the mountain with a pipe and a blanket was all I had. Then afterwards, he walked me through the forest. Each day we'd take a walk in the Rockies there. And he told me, he said, well, the only way this is going to come is through experience. You've got to realize that you have these wazias, they're called the thunder beings, They chose you for some reason. And we don't know, because sometimes we get pretty humbled or we get taken far from where we thought we were going to go. But there's some destiny to play for the benefit of all people. It's not just me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I had to learn by giving people permission to die, holding people in my arms who were near death but fighting. And the body became that vessel through which their spirit could leave. And it was freaky. I mean, I was terrified. Mm. And then understanding every one of us has powers in medicine in us that are awaiting to be awakened and identified. And once, like with the shaman, once you begin to wake up to have a certain kind of medicine, I've got to work with that. It may be a seed, but I've got to plant that seed and then find out. I can't take some course on being a shaman and get a degree. I've got to work with that every day and find out.
And when this happened, that was decades ago.
Decades ago, yeah.
Yes, and now several things have happened. You have attended many ceremonies, and you have
around the world,
and you have led some ceremonies yourself.
Oh, led
many of them.
Yeah,
and you have helped to heal and traumatized people who have had a long history of trauma in their relatives or among their families, and you have been able to do all these things and other things that I don't even know. But I mean, how do you look back to this whole journey of yours? How do you see it from today's consciousness?
Sometimes, Teemu, I look back and I think, that's me? Who in the hell am I? This guy from the orange groves. Who knew that this destiny was ahead of me? I probably would not have said yes, because I wanted to do something else. It has taken years, decades, to sit here in front of you and whatever and have a ball. Because all I am about is joy.
So, but still, in indigenous world, many people say that when you have arrived to a certain age, for instance, that you are mature, you are 60, 70, they might still say that he's young, but you are now 82.
No.
83?
Almost 84.
Almost 84. So, do you still have something in your sleeves or something in your future that you see that destiny is calling for?
I have joy. Joy in my everyday existence. So I have reprogrammed myself that every day I wake up ready for a new day. I wake up for uncertainty. That's one of the biggest lies we have is about certainty. Uncertainty is the way of life. Never know what's going to show up next. And as long as little Charlie, maybe some folks can see Charlie here, but as long as this little kid in me feels safe, feels he has the permission, my permission, the allowance to keep dreaming. Now, we have the mutuality of Carolyn in the back. You know, the day she died, because we used to sit there in the mornings on Hopi and talk about the dreams. And dreams are still, they were to her grandma, so alive. She would carry the messages from that world to this world. And I came to it innately when I started going to Musqueam out there in the Northwest. I'd have people I didn't know coming to me at nighttime and saying, give Ernie this, or tell Charlie that, or tell. So all these ancestors came through me because their descendants were not listening anymore. Now the Hopi
You mean in spirit world?
those in the spirit world came to me
Yes.
to give messages to their descendants. And the Hopi have a term called hollow bone. And for some folks in the science world, a torsion field. Are you aware of a torsion field?
No.
That although we look pretty solid, we are just simply energy dancing. And the torsion field, you could say works for the chakras, but this energy is moving up and around and down and up all the time. And the one who becomes the technician of that, how you breathe, how open you are to life, how you are devouring life, like the old Bond tradition. The one who really, 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 really breathes. They're not spiritual. They're very alive because their molecules are filled with fire, aliveness. Yeah. And that way of the Hopi taught me, and it was them, there's no one answer to anything. There's at least the masculine way and the feminine way, because they can be quite opposites. And there's 1,000 other ways of responding to any situation. So I practiced those ways for decades now. And slowly, I'm not who I was yesterday. I'm not who I was 6 months ago, crawling on the ground in such pain I couldn't stand up. But that's initiation and the journey onward. And all I have to really go on, like every day, Teemu, is that what magic could happen today that never ever happened before. Rumi says, don't go back to sleep. What do you want? And that's part of real vitalism. A lot of folks give up desire. They give up the tropism, that yearning. It's endemic in our beings. Life. And we have culture of people grown old. We have stories of folks who lived 700, 800 years ago. They're there in the Bible, other tales. But folks get old before, why bother? And we have folks maybe in their 90s, you may know some, who are just as vital as 10-year-olds. Because there's spirit there.
So what can we do in order to revive this old appreciation of experiences of different ages, for instance? And you're talking about the value of the old age and the wisdom there. So how could we change this way of living that we are living and the value system that we have?
Well, I wouldn't change it for a moment. Okay, number one. What I can do is upgrade it. And upgrade and change are different things. And to me, as an old man, you can call me an elder or call me an old man, I don't care which. But when I sit and talk to younger people, or I talk to somebody who maybe is middle-aged or what have you, I learn to ask the questions nobody else asks. A lot of people are afraid or don't know how to ask what we call the crucial question. Because there's always something in the other individual that's just waiting to be asked. We call that being witnessed, being seen. And it's waiting. And I receive so much joy, so much more delight in manipulating people because they believe their story. Who's writing these awful scripts? Just like Hollywood drama people live. Who in the hell is writing those scripts? Fire the scriptwriter.
In me.
Yes. I love that. Yeah. Who would write such god-awful scripts?
Yes.
And when enough...
It's the other guy.
The other guy, not me, you know. But I think we have enough. We talk about consciousness. When I really am listening to somebody, I can tell by their language when they're stuck in the past somewhere, or they're afraid of the future somewhere, and they're not being here now. And only now is where real joy is. Only right now is where this all is. Yeah. And that will take care of itself. And I can drop the dry bones of what I didn't do or who, way back there. And right here is where the script is happening. And
but me says, but, and it says that like this, that but we have this and that. What about if we don't take care of this, then what will happen? We see it catastrophe.
But that word but comes from an old language.
Exactly.
That but is not even relevant anymore. Because that's reductionistic. It implies a lot of things. And a linguist would say to you, you go to and but are very different. And this, and that opens the doorway. I've been working for the last few years on what we call engaged indifference. To becoming, so there's engaged indifference. Chew on that, will you? Engaged indifference. That I can hear somebody's story and, oh my God, they feel so sorry for themselves. They're worried about the world. They're so dramatic. And I go, okay, let's get over this, you know. When you get over your pity story, like Don Juan called it, self-pity, self-importance, when they get over that, I'm going to ask them the question, what are you really looking at now? Where are you right now? Really? Because each one of us, Campbell talked about it. The native elders used to talk about it in the sweat lodge and all. Some folks, well, everybody has a future. Some folks have a destiny. And to ask that question of myself, is my world, is this movie of my mind, this world that I'm living in, is it a balanced world? Is my personal world balanced? Am I alive here? What's happening here in my world? And, not but, and, is there something I can do today for Mother Earth? Is there something I can do? Because I know there's a lot of other gods and goddesses who are in the midst of their hallucinations or whatever their pity dramas are or their ecstatic dances are. They're all doing something too. But maybe I have another destiny. My destiny with the Hopis, my destiny with the Musqueams, those little ways. Maybe. But it keeps an individual very humble. My Indian dad, Vince Stogan, taught that you take care of your work. Is your life really, really going well? Are there no excuses in your life? Is your life going really, really well? Everybody in your life, because then, like Jung said, you're living in a world of synchronicity. Things happen effortlessly. It's all effortless. Because one's in balance in oneself. And only then can one be of service to others. We have a lot of lecturers and theorists. Don't look behind their lies, honey, baby, because they're all messed up back there. They want you to look at their theory or be up the pulpit, pointing. No. I want to see what's in the shadow. Then I know whether you're worth talking to or not.
You have in Native American rituals, and I believe in indigenous cultures, often they have something like ceremonies where there's a gift giving, where you bring your own gift and you don't know what you're going to get back.
That's right.
But it's very important that you're sharing gifts with the community and with your folks. Mm-hmm. I remember I took part of one of the that kind of a little ceremony in your house once, and that was very touching. Mm-hmm. How important it is as well that we we do that, even though it's very symbolic, but it's also spiritual, isn't it?
Totally. And I learned a lot of that from the Northwest Coast, the potlatch ceremony.
Potlatch, yeah.
Where they'll give everything away. They hold on to nothing. Take it down to the smokehouse or down by the river for a ceremony, and everything goes out. They know it's going to come back tenfold. And that's a learning of a real spiritual principle. Let go of everything. Be willing to let go. Because when you're hanging on, when you're holding on, nothing, you can't, your hands and arms not open.
And even though I totally agree with this idea, and I can see the purpose of it, but still my Western mind says, immediately jumps in with rational thoughts, and they are like this, that they are holding on material things and security. That what about if I give everything and if I don't get back things, you know?
Well, all I can say to you, Mr. Teemu, you will never know until you do it.
Exactly.
So go home tonight and put everything out on the street. I dare you to. And wait and see. It so blows the circuits out of the IJC, the fear-based consciousness.
Yeah.
It's so it's so unconscious, so unnatural.
It is.
Yeah.
You see, in the Western world, we praise and the teachings of Jesus, and I think Jesus did exactly that. That he gave everything away and he became a beggar, or he living like nothing, with nothing, no material things. But what have we developed into? Actually, quite opposite. We build more and more things around us in order to be secure.
Mm-hmm. You're on very dangerous territory with me. Very dangerous. I warn you right now.
Do it. Thank you.
What are you really wanting to say?
Exactly that.
Yeah.
What you heard.
And are you talking from theory or experience?
Stories.
Stories. And you haven't lived it yourself?
Of course not.
Okay.
I mean, I said that,
but talk from the stories you've lived yourself.
This is contradiction of our life,
but,
and where I have grown into.
Yeah.
And we don't live as we preach. That's my point.
Can you prove that Jesus ever lived, or is he a manipulation?
No, that's another side of the point. We don't live as we preach. That's the point.
But who's doing the preaching? Who gave anybody the permission to preach?
I don't know. Bible does it, and the people who read it and who believe it.
I hear that, but what happens with that? In the last pages of the Bible, after it all done, only the Jews are left. So it's a self-serving book. Hello, excuse me?
Yeah, okay. I'm not knowledgeable enough
don't bring
to
it
talk
in.
about.
Don't bring it in.
But it's a story of our lives.
It's a story of being manipulated.
Yes, of course. I'm talking about the same thing. You didn't hear that.
Well, you're made to believe that, like those who translated from the Greek, the Beatitudes from the Greek, was never said, "Blessed are the poor." It was never said that. It's deliberate misinterpretation to manipulate consciousness of others.
Of course, that could be debated as well. That what does it mean? Does it mean spiritually poor, which is exactly the same thing as what Hopis say, that you got to be the final experience of the, for instance, the hopi elder Titus, who experienced the massa sitting on his stomach, and his message to Titus was that he told this, that humans are poor and naked. And that is what he told me many times, okay. And which goes along with the idea of being poor in spiritual sense. It's not correlation to the idea of materialistic idea at all. It's something that we have to be humble, poor, and truthful.
Masa's experience with me was not that way at all. The night I called on Masa and he came. Another night of powerful terror and initiation for me. Again, those may have been the messages Titus needed to give to you. I got different messages. I was taught about being spirited, about being vital. It's different.
Yeah, of course. But that was on at the end, isn't that so that at the end we anyhow, what are we? What is our body? What are our things that we own? What are the things that we think that is me? Isn't that at the end when it all comes to being in the threshold of crossing over the spiritual side? Isn't that my body is nothing? I mean it doesn't mean a thing what I think, what I am, how do I look, how I appear. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know what you're saying because you're implying your interpretations. Mm-hmm. I know that as an individual is conscious enough and works with their vibration, the molecules in the cells of their bodies are vibrating at a higher frequency, a coherency. And it makes, like with the Tibetans, it makes that journey different. If your molecules are your so-called ill or have your molecules, you're falling apart, you're dying. Those who know how to manipulate in the sense of what they call technicians of the energy can build that prana, that life force, such a point, where you voluntarily leave.
But the ego dies. The ego,
the consciousness,
me, the
How
idea.
Do you know? How do you know? How do you know?
I've been there.
Oh, good. And your me dies to what? Dissolution or a higher frequency?
It's not for me to say that one who is speaking here now cannot say that, cannot verbalize that, because it's something that is beyond words.
Well, now to me, what they taught me about the sipapu, how much they taught to you about that, or what happens in those hours after you so-called die, and how many days you have to be in that ground, and then what happens when you go to the sipapu, and you review, the consciousness has to review your lifetime. The Hopi talked to me about that, and you have to go over your life. There's got to be an I thinking about that, some kind of an I. And the basic question they ask, because there's no God or judgment out there. No, one reflects on my journey. The journey, my journey. And the question they taught me was, how many people are happier that I was born? How many people are happier that I was born? Think about that one. And if each person would be taught to have that kind of self-reflection. It takes a self of some kind. Maybe it will dissipate later. But those hours, those days, at least what they taught me, like Grandma had to be in the ground, or little Dan had to be in the ground before that time. Then they have those many days to wander in spirit around to check things out. And then they go to the Sipapu. And that's where they evaluate their lives. How many people are happier that I was born? And each one of us, we had that reflection that during each day we can just, our little glances to each other. A spirit lights up. People are happier, they're more joyous. And we all have that alchemical capacity to be hollow bones for joy.
I can see what, and it widens my view on this ego as well, or the me. That me is not only skin capsulated ego,
Right.
but me is also wider. Me is also communal, or it is everything. As far as I understood it, is everything that I have been connected with.
Everything.
Everything.
It told me the spider's web. There's a thread of connection with everything woven, being woven, a web being woven, a blanket being woven, a life being woven.
Beautiful.
And who and what is weaving this is the question.
Beautiful.
What is it? And that great mystery of it all. I just get to come along and have fun, have a ball. Because it's all mystery, isn't it, really? It's all amazing.
True, truly.
Every sunrise is different, every sunset is different. Every night the stars are dancing in a different pattern. And the seasons just go round and round in their own way.
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome, guy.
Yeah.
And cheers.
Yes.
Did you have fun?